Hey guys, Ponce here with the notes for the first major patch of the Legends of Runeterra open beta, and I'll be discussing that in the following video. Now, for those of you interested, I will put a link in the description below for this exact thing I'm looking over with all the notes in detail so you can read them yourselves. Don't want to listen to me and my crazy ideas, feel free to do that now or after or whatever. But yeah, let's look at the changes and see the implications here. There's a bunch of stuff at the beginning I'm not really going to go over. It's a bunch of review and like their philosophy and balance stuff. If you're interested, that's there. UI clarification stuff. I mean, it's nice, but I don't care. Maybe you do. Read this yourself. I'm interested in what's going on with the cards here. So, Lux is being buffed in terms of raw stats. Power is going up by 1. Health is going up by 1. It makes sense to me. I mean, she's okay. I'm not going to go, oh my god, this person's using Lux. They're an idiot. But, you know, she doesn't usually feel like that huge of a threat. Not that many people use her. Maybe this get people to use her a bit more. I don't know. I feel like it's not a terrible thing to buff her. I don't think it's going to change too much other than maybe she gets used slightly more. Oh, and of course, when she's leveled, she's slightly stronger as well. Pretty good stats at level 5 and 6, respectable. Moving on here, we have Yasuo who's getting buffed, which on the surface seems a little bit weird, but you need to take it in the context of some buffs or nerfs that are happening later on. So it's probably worth reading over this yourself if you're particularly curious to use a Yasuo deck. But it's sort of talking about his limited use, especially in draft/expedition mode, where he kind of has to be paired with Noxus. And since Ionia is being nerfed overall and some of the cards that tend to work with him, they're trying to make him a bit more usable. Despite the fact that I think he's a pretty good champion, but he's just, I guess, generally hard to defend, and he's going to become harder to defend when some change is happening. Okay, so this is the only Freljord change, if I recall correctly. There might have been another one, but I think this is the only one. Where back-to-back is being nerfed, the cost is going up by 1. Kind of makes sense to me. It is a very powerful card. Burst is phenomenally powerful. When you take it in the context of, you know what we should probably mention, because I keep coming back to this. This is the important one right here. Deny was nerfed. So we'll get back to the other things first. But Deny, no big surprise here. I'm pretty sure everyone expected it to be nerfed. The real question was how are they going to nerf it? This was kind of the idea that was floated by the most people. You know, it came to myself as well as a possible idea. It's going from 3 cost to 4 cost. So it means you can't just float the spell mana. You actually need your, your regular mana bar to use it, at least some of it. So I don't know. I'd have to actually play this to see how it actually changes things, because this is rather large. I mean, this one card, which is why, it's being nerfed and why people were expecting it to be nerfed, because this one card was holding down a lot of other cards because it, well, denies them. And that's why stuff like burst spells are becoming so important. And granted, burst spells are still great whether or not you have deny or not. But, yeah, I don't know. Deny was just a very oppressive, almost kind of a meta-shaping card, because you always played around Deny, especially if there was Ionia. And odds are there was probably an Ionia player you're going to see, within 1 or 2 games, because it was a very, very common, and probably still remain a very common faction, just maybe less so. And perhaps slightly less ubiquitous. Because that's the other thing, too. If there was an Ionia deck, you could expect Deny to be in it. Like, if there was an Ionia deck that didn't have a Deny in it, they're probably doing something wrong, or it was a very weird deck. But in any case, back to back here. Back to back. Anyway. Yeah. This is another one of those pretty oppressive cards. It just kind of shows up. I mean, yeah, I can see why it's being nerfed. Like, it wasn't at the top of my radar personally, but when I see it on paper, I'm like, yeah, I guess I can't complain. Incidentally, Freljord, we'll talk a little bit about Freljord after this video, but Freljord is a very strong faction, so taking a slight hit on this card, I imagine people will still use it, is the thing. That's probably a mark of a good card, where it's like, it's getting nerfed, but people are still going to use it. Arena Battlecaster, no surprise here, it's getting buffed. It wasn't a card even thought about, probably because it's just weird and hard to use. It's just so fragile and just kind of clunky. There's just simply better things to use, but I don't know, maybe we'll see it used now. It is at least a 2/2, so the mana cost, the stats match the mana cost at least, I guess. The thing. Crimson Curator gone up in health a little bit. I always found it but when they say like the Battle Scars deck, I imagine probably like the standard Freljord, what's become fairly standard, the Freljord Noxus deck, where you sort of take damage and good things happen, sort of thing. This was always like the card that just kind of people didn't use, I guess, or it was very rare to see it because, yeah, it was clunky, it's weak. It's gone up in health, so perhaps it'll see more use. That general architect or general deck archetype decks have been underperforming. I mean, I don't know about underperforming. They're probably not the strongest decks, so maybe that's what they mean by underperforming. I always found them amusing, but yeah, I guess they're a bit more viable now. Deny, of course, we talked about. This is, again, the big takeaway from this patch. If nothing else, just remember Deny is crappier. Inspiring Mentor. This is actually also fairly large. Another Ionian nerf thing here, as you might expect. It's like a buff nerf. The card itself is slightly tougher, so it's 1/2. Who cares, I guess. Like, in some context it might help. But now the effect is it only grants +1/+0 to the target in hand. So that's a fairly significant nerf, and it doesn't surprise me because, I mean, certainly as I suppose, the flavor of the month hand buff decks became less popular. Because, I mean, for the first little while, you were seeing nothing but this deck, and then they started to die off. But it was no surprise that you would always see this card, and even in just general Ionian decks, you would always see this card. This, for a while, was the most common card I would see, period. It was just everywhere, and it was just annoying. I mean, just to constantly hear, "I'll show you how it's done," and it's just like, oh my. I'm glad, hopefully, we're gonna see less of it, because, you know, any card, when you see it too much, just, yeah, okay. Moving right on. Jeweled Protector. It is being buffed to compensate for the other enemy nerfs, and it wasn't exactly the easiest card to use. It was a 3/3 before for 5 mana. Granted, it was a huge buff, like +3/+3 to thing in hand, but I kind of used it before, especially like in draft decks. It was the sort of thing you could sort of use. It was kind of one of those, well, there's nothing better, so I'm going to take this one style cards. It's going to, you know, it's going to make an okay card slightly more okay. I don't think there's anything too huge here with this. Which, incidentally, I kind of like that approach, I guess. It's just like, there's nothing, generally speaking, there's nothing like too drastic going on here thus far, except outside of maybe Deny, but again, I would have to see how that plays out. Let's stop talking about Deny. Kinko Lifeblade is being nerfed. It's going from 3 health to 2 health. I like this card. I gradually started, I was kind of neutral to kind of liked it at the beginning, and then I started to like it more and more over time. But I never thought it was like the most amazing thing in the universe. Granted, it was okay. I don't know if it warrants a nerf. Like, if the idea what they're talking about here is just making the elusive style deck slightly weaker, I don't know if this was necessarily the card to hit. Again, I am recognizing it is good. I just didn't know it was like worthy of really going out of your way to nerf. Then again, I don't know. It is going from 3 health to 2 health is pretty significant. It means you can get nuked down with 2-shot or 2 hits, or rather 2 damage spells. You know, chump blockers with a measly 2 damage can now kill it. Stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm not gonna get too upset or think really too much about it. It's a nerf. It's not exactly worth my time to, I suppose, consider in great depth. If you feel like doing so, feel free to chime in. But okay, so this is a kind of interesting one here. We got a whole bunch of Shadow Isle nerfs here, which I think most people were somewhat expecting. Like, a bunch. Anyway, Ledros, Commander Ledros, he is being kind of buff nerfed more. In any case, his cost is going up from 8 to 9, so he's becoming more expensive. Obviously a nerf. Power is going up from 8 to 9, so he is getting stronger in terms of his ability to smack you in the face. But how he works is being changed slightly. So the old text is cut the enemy nexus health in half. The new text is cut the enemy nexus health in half, rounded up. So it's going to round up now. Now, I do believe I've read somewhere that this can no longer kill you. Like, Ledros can't kill you at 1 health with this. I don't know if I have done that to someone, yes. I'm pretty sure I have done that to someone where they're 1 health and I've killed them. Now it shouldn't be able to do that if I'm reading this correctly, and I read some other things, people saying it's not, so it's not going to kill anymore. No super surprise here. Ledros is really, really good, and he's easy to fit in a lot of, like, he's a much more general use than some of the high cost character things, or not characters, but, you know, high cost cards. That said, you know, you kind of expect the high-cost cards to have, like, tons of impact. Every time I look at a high-cost card, because most of them tend to have pretty good and significant impact on the game, like, how much of an impact is this going to have if I drop this card? And if the answer isn't significant, I'm not going to use it. Simply because, you know, games don't tend to reach that, especially against more efficient decks. Games don't really go long near that often, so you don't get as many chances to use it. So when it does happen, you really, really want it to have an impact and be like a game-deciding sort of thing. Ledros definitely was that in the past. He probably still will be, I imagine. Coming out a bit slower, I suppose, is the big nerf here. But overall, it doesn't super surprise me. Again, I'm going to reiterate, you expect big cards to have a lot of impact, but Ledros might have been a bit excessive in that department now. So similarly, the Blade of Ledros, so yeah, they're just updating his skill thing. Old text, cut the enemy nexus health in half, cut the enemy nexus new text, cut the enemy nexus health in half, rounded up. Alright, moving right along, we have Rasa the Sunder. His cost is going up, doesn't massively surprise me again. He's another one of those, yeah, it's a late game card, but man, that impact is really impactful. There's a very good reason I like and use this card, and I will probably continue to use this card because he very easily decides games. He is a bit clunky. He's not necessarily maybe as good as he might look on paper, because there's a lot of weird instances where just garbage chump stuff gets in the way, and he's not that useful, or it's kind of difficult to get the condition to go off in the right time because you need the things to die immediately. So there is kind of a clunkiness to him, but just killing 2 things and then having him show up was really good. I feel like, yeah, 8 mana probably is enough to bring him in line, because I always thought he was good, but not necessarily, oh my god, this is the most broken thing ever. So, alright. So those are, I guess, the major Shadow Isle changes there, or at least nerfs. I'm not super surprised. Shadow Isles is my favorite faction, and I mean, to an extent, it's probably because the faction is slightly overtuned, and I kind of like subconsciously clued into that very, very early and started playing it right away from the first beta. But at the same time, I also just really like the theme and how it plays as well. So it's not like I'm going to stop playing Shadow Isle, because there also are some buffs as well. So Scuttlegeist is being nerfed, interestingly. So it's just basically getting fearsome. I hadn't thought of this, but now that I look at it, it doesn't super surprise me. Scuttlegeist is one of those cards that's, I don't know, when I first started playing the game, like in the initial beta, when everyone just kind of sucked, and I didn't really know what I was doing, Scuttlegeist seemed really good, and I liked it a lot, and it got a lot of use, and was very, very... It ended up being quite decisive in a lot of games. Like, oh, big 5-drop in the middle of the game is pretty good for a cheap cost kind of thing. And then the more I played, the more efficient my decks got, the more efficient the opponent decks got. Especially when everyone is playing the same net deck. Scuttlegeist really started to lose its luster a lot. And it's gone to the point where I only have 1 of them left in the deck. I think I used to have 3 at one point, like way back when. And it's gotten to the point where I'm almost considering just removing it altogether. This probably will at least get me to keep that 1 in. It is a bit hard to use, and Fearsome it's nice. It just means, garbage can't get in the way and just sort of ruin its day sort of thing. So, Scuttlegeist being buffed. Also, Scuttlegeist is really annoying in conjunction with, what's that thing? I think it's Ethereal Remitter, the one that gives you a creature but 2 cost higher. It was either Ethereal Remitter or like the other one that's really similar. But it kills the thing and brings something back 2 cost higher. So there's our 3 cost, and since you can't go over 10 cost for creatures, you had your 3 choices of what you could get at a 10 cost that replaces the original 10 cost would be Scuttlegeist, the robot with fast attack, I forget what it's called, and what is it, She-Who, whatever, the thing that obliterates all 4 cost. So if you got the 10-10, it was, you don't get the effect because it's a play effect, and it just comes back or just shows up on the screen, but you do get a 10-10, so that'd be quite nice if you got that replacement. The 6-6 robot with fast attack or quick attack was also really good because it's better than Scuttlegeist. And there was a 1 in 3 chance you would just get Scuttlegeist back, and it was a huge piss off because Scuttlegeist isn't even really that good. But now that, I suppose it's gonna be, if you do that combo and you get the Scuttlegeist, the last place prize, the bronze medal, it's going to be, I guess, slightly less annoying because at least you have a 5/5 Fearsome on the field. which you replace the 5/5 fearsome. But anyway, lastly we have Tortured Prodigy going up in power. This is a very interesting card. I've always meant, and I don't have a lot to say about this, I've always meant to do something with this card and try it out and experiment, but I never have. So maybe this will finally get me to test it out. It is going to become a 4/4 for 5 mana, but yeah, just refilling your mana in a deck, like especially an ephemeral style deck where stuff is dying all the time anyway and you don't really care, or in a what's it called, Last Breath effect style deck. It could be quite interesting, because Shadow Isle obviously does have a lot of good spells in it. So I don't think this is going to be the catalyst to get me to try it. I probably would have tried the card out anyway. But I guess it's a nice little thing. And maybe that's why they're buffing it. It's just kind of that weird card that doesn't necessarily immediately strike someone as having like a cool, I'm going to use this right now with huge impact sort of use. So at the very least, maybe it'll get people to start using it. If it turns out it's way too good, they'll just nerf it again. But, you know, whatever. Oh, wait, there is one more nerf. I forgot about this one down at the bottom here. Wraithcaller. So Wraithcaller is having its fearsome removed. So this is one of the offenders of the everyone's playing the same stupid net deck thing. People just spamming wraiths and spiders and the fearsome thing. I saw it for a couple days and then stopped playing ranked for a while because it was just boring fighting these things over and over again. Because, well, you guys saw I did release a video on that, you know, the whole topic. Allegedly, people are still doing that to people who like kept playing rank over the last few days. Hopefully this makes it go away, not because I think it's horrendously overpowered, but just because it's so damn boring to see the same thing over and over and over and over again. Granted, it is a very good card. It doesn't necessarily surprise me that it's getting nerfed. It is being used for a reason. Like, you know, people who play these sorts of games, who are very used to these sorts of concepts, did craft this deck, put it on the internet, and then everyone started using it, kind of thing. So generally, yeah, net decks are pretty efficient. They are used for a reason. And I do remember when Wraithcaller was actually initially buffed. I don't remember what they did with it. I'm trying to think. Maybe they mentioned it here. I didn't actually read the text because I know. Anyway, in any case, it was buffed at the beginning of this open beta, so it was crappier before and no one used it. So in any case, fearsome is being removed. Is that enough to get people to stop using this? Maybe. I mean, it certainly does cut down on the massive amounts of fearsome that can show up in the Wraith Spider style deck. So yeah. And then there's kind of the watch list again. And this is actually a bit important because I'm going to talk about something here in a second. So they're still watching fearsome. They're, you know, maybe they'll nerf it more. I don't really have a... Well, why don't we just read what Riot's reasoning here is? I think this is an important section to take a look at. Legends of Runeterra is built around a central pattern of interactive, interesting combats. One of the reasons we are keeping an eye on elusive decks and ultimately made some changes is that when firing on all cylinders, they remove much of that interactivity. In large concentrations, fearsome can have a similar impact. Once they become very difficult to block, the points of interaction shrink and a lot of the interesting back and forth in the game disappears and it becomes Hearthstone. For now, we think the changes in this patch plus some existing tools provide enough counter pressure on fearsome, but we'll be keeping an eye on those units and their supporting cards. So they're like, alright, we kind of nerfed some fearsome stuff and then added a fearsome card, but we're still looking at it because lack of interactivity. Alright, next we have Control. Collectively, the card updates in this patch represent a general reduction in the power of tools that aggressive and mid-range decks have to combat control strategies, especially ways to reach inevitability. While control decks haven't been problematic so far during beta, we'll be keeping an eye out to see if they've been overly powered up by these changes or their consequences. It is interesting they mention this, because as I was looking through these changes, I was like, whoa, nothing on Freljord. Freljord's going to be good. Freljord's going to get better. And they do mention it here. So, again, it's hard to say exactly because you have to play within the context of these changes to get a full grasp of things. But it is good to see Riot was already thinking that kind of thing. Because honestly, I already think Freljord is very, very good. It's not disgustingly good, but it can be really oppressive. And I don't know, I kind of want to soft predict we're going to start seeing a lot of very Freljord control heavy decks coming up. I'm thinking of like even before this patch, I was thinking, I had a couple ideas in my head floating around of what I wanted to do. Because Freljord has some really, really good cards. When they say control, I imagine that's what they... I mean, it is sort of one of them... One type of control. It's the primary type of control. But watch out for that. Maybe start thinking about building a deck of your own. Beat the curve before everyone else starts doing it. Then again, there are a lot of possibilities. So it might not... just might get cancelled by something else that becomes overpowered as a result of all this stuff. Alright, so that's it really in terms of balance changes. There's a bunch of crap here on like settings, miscellaneous bug fixes, changes to experience, which I don't really care about. There's expedition archetypes, so expedition stuff comes with different cards now slightly. It's getting mixed up a bit. I suppose the one thing I saw in terms of changes that kind of affects me, and that's why I'm going to mention it, is... oh yeah, expedition wins were changed. So overall, expeditions are worth less EXP because apparently they were giving too much, which kind of seemed like to me, but I didn't do the math on it. So they're changing 6 expedition win reward is now 1,500 shards, used to be 1,000, as well as a random champion card and a golden chest, so that part's the same. And 7 win expeditions has been nerfed to compensate for the 6 win thing by giving 3,000 shards, as opposed to 3,500, as well as the champion capsule. So basically, 7 wins now only just... well, I mean, the capsule will give you extra shards, but in terms of the raw shards you get, 7 win expedition only refunds you, and 6 wins gets you half. Now, yeah, I've only ever... I mean, this sucks for me, because I tend to... I mean, I don't want to brag or anything, but I mean, I tend to win a lot of them. I get a lot of 7 wins. I very, very rarely get 6 wins. In fact, I've only got it once. And since I only got it once... and I got 1,000 shards. I was like, what the hell is this? I got ripped up. I thought maybe it was a bug, but I actually just had it confirmed by reading this. It is, in fact, only supposed to give you 1,000 shards, which I thought was really lame. So I guess it's good that it's getting buffed up, even though that doesn't necessarily benefit me. In fact, I'm actually being nerfed. But again, I have so many resources in the game, I don't really care. But, yeah, I mean, it's a sensible change. I like... you know, I wasn't upset or anything, but I thought it was like, it just felt like I was cheated after I got a 6-win thing, and then they just shoved 1,000 shards at me. So there you have it. Beyond that, the only last thing I want to comment on is this little blurb here, which has nothing to do with the patch notes. Talking about whoever I guess wrote these patch notes, I don't know. I just like the line, he loves to run an all-out championless Ionia Noxus aggro deck named Do You Have Avalanche? That's gonna be it for me. Thanks for watching, guys. Those are the patch notes. I actually don't know when it's being released. I was told by someone... I said, this is that for me, and I can keep going, but I was told that it's going to be released tomorrow on Tuesday. That was just someone on my stream. I actually haven't... maybe I just missed it, because I guess I didn't read everything. I just sort of looked over the important bits. But yeah, I don't actually know when it's going to be released, which is interesting. And it's not in this video either here. It's just a little short little clip at the end. But I'm just going to go with it's going to be released tomorrow, I guess, which is kind of abrupt. Patch notes, then release. But, you know, it's still in beta, so whatever. If not tomorrow, we'll see it at some point. And maybe you'll see me at some point. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here on the channel, as I've been uploading a lot of Legends of Runeterra stuff. And, you know, I've also been streaming a lot of it on Twitch, twitch.tv/monts. See you guys around. Goodbye.